Up close tonight, a woman who dreamed of doing what a woman wasn't supposed to do, to venture alone into the forests of Africa. Jane Goodall worked as a waitress to save enough money in order to travel to Kenya at the age of 23. There, she sought out the renowned anthropologist Dr. Louis Leakey, who became her mentor. It was 1960 when she went to the shores of Lake Tanganyika to study chimpanzees. Not only did she help us understand our links to the animal world, but she also shined her light on what in her youth was known as the Dark Continent. To introduce us to this extraordinary woman tonight, my Nightline colleague, Don Daler.
As a little girl on the southern coast of England, she dreamt of flying off to Africa, meeting Tarzan, becoming his Jane. Instead, she became ours. Jane Goodall was a graceful ambassador to another world, another species. Over 4 decades, she brought us along with her on her travels in the forests around the Gombe Stream in Tanzania, where we met our distant ancestors and through her eyes saw in them ourselves. Those eyes were her field instruments, patient but piercing, taking in everything around her, always fearless, always open-minded to discovery. At 68, her home is still Africa, but these days she spends roughly 300 days a year traveling for various human and animal rights causes. Her renowned patience has dimmed somewhat in the face of what she sees as threats to the earth, and by extension, us. But Jane Goodall still looks around her with open eyes. She is, to this day, unafraid to open ours as well.
It hasn't always been that the Jane Goodall approach has been the one that's most welcomed by the scientific community.
Still isn't by many.
Yeah.
But you know, it wasn't just the names and the personalities that were a no-no. It was also I dared to talk about them having rational thought and also emotions. I wasn't the first, but my problem was that Louis Leakey sent me off to Cambridge University in England to get not just a BA, he said there's no time for that, a PhD. So here's this young girl coming in with these ridiculous ways of studying, with this, you know, at that time, animal behavior ethology in Europe is where it began, and it was very reductionist. Animals were machines, and you had to take the simplest possible explanation of complex behavior. And here was I coming in with all these stupid comments, and I had to be beaten into submission. But fortunately, I mean, Lewis tells me afterwards that he was looking for somebody whose mind wasn't biased by introduction. And secondly, all through my childhood, I had this wonderful teacher who taught me everything you could possibly want to know about how to study animals and how wonderful they are and how they share our emotions. That's my dog.
Rusty.
Rusty. So although, you know, I should have been absolutely overawed by the blinding science of these professors, I knew they were talking a whole load of rubbish.
You also have said that Rusty taught you the true nature of love.
Unconditional love. And that's what we can get from animals if we treat them as friends rather than things.
I love the fact that when you went to Africa the first time, you were so young that the government there insisted that you bring your mother along.
Well, my mother was the great support. You know, when I dreamed of Africa aged 8, 9, 10, it was the end of the Second World War, and everybody laughed. We didn't have any money. We couldn't afford a bicycle, let alone a motor car. And Africa was the dark continent, and there were no 747s going back and forth, you know, so they laughed. Jane, dream about something you can achieve, except my mother. And she'd say, Jane, if you really want something, you work hard, you take advantage of opportunity, and you never give up. You find a way. So that was the kind of encouragement that led me to do what I did and take advantage of an invitation to Kenya and quit my job in London and work as a waitress because it was cheaper to live at home and save up the wages and the tips till I had a return fare to get to Africa. And because I'd followed her advice and I'd gone on learning about animals in Africa, even though I didn't go to university because we couldn't afford it, when I met Louis Leakey, I could answer lots of his questions, and that's why he gave me a job. So she, you know, she was this great support. And when the author of Tanganyika, British